Welcome to Resilience by the Sun, the podcast where we stop treating people like the weakest link in the system. I'm Dr. Cynthia Sutherland.
And I am Alexis Robinson. So excited to be here. We're bridging the gap between burnout and breaches because the biggest cyber risk isn't technical, it's human.
Last month, we talked about AI, the excitement, the pressure, the disruption, and what it means for how we work, how we live, how we grow as people in this transformative era. Now, this month, we want to talk about things sitting underneath every AI initiative. Matter of fact, every transformation initiative and every leadership strategy. It's called innovation drag. Innovation drag is the slowing of innovation that has been caused by excessive cognitive load, fragmented processes, siloed decisions, poor organizational design, and just outdated management practices. Some innovation drag is going to be expected, but how do we identify when that is, and how do we help people navigate that? Now, innovation drag is what happens when teams want to move, leaders want outcomes, but something underneath is slowing down that go to market strategy or that launch plan.
So now we'll go into smoke signals. How do you know innovation drag is happening, Cynthia?
Number one of the things I will say is teams are busy, but they're not moving forward.
Ooh.
You'll have a whole lot of busy work. Nothing is moving forward. And so what I mean by that is how your teams aren't always in meetings.
Yes.
If they're in meetings all the time, when are they getting the work done?
Oh.
How can you get the work done if you're always in a meeting with a full calendar?
I would say the second one is meetings where new ideas go to die. It just goes to die because it's all about a lot of discussions and the meeting after the meeting, the whataboutisms of the whataboutisms of the what. So now you're chasing rabbit holes that have nothing to do with a soft pilot that could actually happen. It gets delayed and dismissed at the same time. So it's a whole bunch of people coming together and they can't even give the decision. They only are just giving you feedback. So yeah, that's smoke signal number 2.
Yeah. And I was thinking about another one is leaders who ask for innovation, but they reward people that bring them comfortability and predictability. Those people that say the things, keep things status quo. Leaders that say they want creative thinking, but they punish failure. You can't have success without failure. There has to be room for failure. There has to be room for growth.
Right.
And so I would say leaders, one of the smoke signals we should look for is other leaders that are asking for innovation, but rewarding predictability.
In a practical sense, I would say it's when the leader is like, quick, give me your best 3 ideas because someone else asked them versus, oh, we already have this incubating as these new ideas are coming. And when someone's asking, oh, I can do this or this. Nah, it's we got to figure out something quick. So everyone's now just using an AI prompt for what's a good innovative idea. And you're like, oh my gosh, this just don't even come up with one if this is what we doing today. We just throwing up AI slap today. This ain't gonna work. I'm sorry. This literally just happened. Smoke signal number 4 it falls in line with the smoke signal you have. It's like, okay, if you're gonna punish failure, then I'm gonna stop telling you the truth. This is at the
Yeah,
people level. I'm
yeah.
not gonna raise any concerns unless, or the concerns have to be raised, but it has to be perfectly curated to show we're doing great, we're doing nice, everything's fine. All of that has to be a thing before it all goes up. Then you stop raising things. Employees start withholding ideas because they already think leadership ain't gonna listen, or because it is performative, they're like, I'm gonna give the best ideas here. I'm just gonna keep that for myself and we'll figure out how I'm gonna do it later. Or they're like, it's not gonna work. I'm not even gonna get my hopes up. So people are saying and doing what sounds safe instead of what is actually true to the environment. Silence is actually the biggest blocker to innovation because what ends up happening is people now end up doing innovation because something blew up. But that's not really innovation, that's a fix. Not because, oh, someone really sought something, looked around the corner, saw a risk, planned for how to address that, or saw a customer base that was neglected and figured out how to address it and come back. Not you're not getting any of that. You just gonna get the basic things you've been asking for.
I, and those basic things, like you were saying, that silence part, that's the part that's so disheartening for a company
It's
where
heartbreaking
your
to me.
employees get quiet, they stop telling the truth, like you said. And then as someone who gets excited by innovation, it's like I can't be the only one here thinking about how we can move forward. And how can we get other people to buy in and come in on the solutions? Like, no, they're just gonna shoot it down anyway. That's frustrating. And so
Exactly.
when like what you were saying about AI being used to identify innovation, like that's hilarious. That's hilarious. And the other one of the other smoke signals that's most recent for me is using AI on top of broken or unwritten or unspoken processes.
Yeah.
When we put AI on top of broken or unspoken processes, it's not fixing the workflows underneath. It's distracting you from what your ultimate goal is or what your ultimate outcome is. And so I would say that at that point in time, that technology gets layered into the confusion. And now there's a back and forth about what needs to be done. And so AI cannot solve unclear ownership. AI cannot solve poor communication. AI cannot solve lack of trust. AI cannot solve decision fatigue. It
No,
just
it cannot.
adds more complexity, more on top of it. And so, as AI can accelerate work, we want to make sure that it's not also accelerating dysfunction.
Yes, absolutely. So all these folks, and we talk about five of them. These are the things that signal to you, oh, we have an innovation drag, right? It wasn't AI or corporate that started that fire that produced those smoke signals. AI was the last smoke signal we talked about, right? It's something that it's in the culture of our organizations and our teams, and we've all heard these kind of stories. So let's get into some specific personal experiences with resilient voices. I would say my biggest teaming experiences in a lot of my journeys culminated into one pivotal 3.5, 4 years in AWS security assurance. So the prompt that we had was get these services to be FedRAMP authorized. I think when we think about innovation, we sometimes think of it's a new product, it's a new tool, but sometimes it's a new way of working. There's a clear outcome and a clear problem that has to be solved is get these services over to the government as fast as possible and unblock this revenue. So how do we add this assessment process with the army of one, myself, in this product life cycle? So,
Hold on, pause. Were you the only one on that team at the time? Are you
oh,
the
when I
one that
first
stood up?
started, yeah. Oh,
Okay,
yeah.
go
It was
ahead.
me. That was it.
Team of one.
Team of one.
Okay, gotcha.
We were only authorizing new services through the annual assessment cycle. So just once a year. So if you were a service and there was a cutoff After, if you didn't make that cutoff, you have to wait till next year. That wasn't scalable to get 100 services through. So what we did is we made cycles. It wasn't about the team. It wasn't about throwing bodies at it. It was changing the way AWS services thought about going through these FedRAMP cycles. I led with the business. So I was like, here is the roadmap of for the business, and this is where you fit in. Here is where the tranches are. And based working backwards from that roadmap of where the government needs you, we need you over here. And here's all the things you need to do to make it easier in your language. I didn't just tell them, here's a control. And they didn't have to understand FedRAMP. They just had to understand the list of activities that they had. I made sure, one, that we had the right people. They may not have been cloud experts. They may not have been even cybersecurity experts, but they were good with working with people, understanding and diving deep into the technology and being that good liaison. Because if I just had honestly the rule book person that just throws the rule book at people, this would not have worked. So if there was improvements and things to be made, I had to trust the team. So instead of me getting all in it after a certain point, then it was y'all are the leaders of your cycles. You know this. Speak up if things are wrong, if they're messed up, if what's going on, and if it's relevant. Because everyone knew the goal. How do we make this faster? So it wasn't just innovation for innovation's sake. Everyone had a North Star, if you will. The North Star was how do we get these services over to the government as fast as possible? And how creative can we be? So by the time I left, the system was going because they took not only the culture, they took the processes that need to happen and they felt comfortable to make changes as they saw fit. Yeah.
Yeah, and so you talk about it from an internal perspective to AWS.
Yep.
Was it some challenges between definitions and terminology that was
Absolutely. But you still had to go through the same pain. So we had to
mm,
come in and even propose a revamp of that process to make it work because it wasn't scalable. We already had a culture within the team and within the org of,
yeah.
oh no, you see something, you say something.
What have you seen your teams carry that leadership did not notice?
The complexity of making change actually happen. But they were so shackled by the older system that it
Yeah.
took time to get them to understand that we could do things differently. And when we say that time, but they didn't understand, is we're going to keep suffering until you make a decision, though. And then I think I got used to expressing and formulating the suffering in a way that was palatable to them. So that it didn't seem like we were nagging or complaining, but we were just being very crisp. But when you
Yeah.
think about innovation or making changes and solving problems, you got to think about what is the benefit for that other person to even see what you're trying to do from an innovation perspective. And so you have to get comfortable even formulating that argument on both sides.
Gotcha. So from a leadership perspective, what do you think it would take for a leader to create that space where people could contribute honestly?
I would say people shouldn't be going to you as a leader about just the fires. They should also be going to you on
Mhm.
a regular basis, I would say quarterly, on possible solutions and things to look around the corner about. You have to create space for that.
Okay. Got it. So for me, when I think about innovation drag, it takes me back to where we were working through implementing McAfee's endpoint security solution. As the only member of that new security operations team, my job was to deploy this host-based security solution across the agency. The problem was that it was an innovative solution that we did not choose. It was a solution that was decided upon by the department. So at that point, you have to get it done. I was still the only person doing this work for my specific agency. I was burnt out after 3 months of focused weekdays and weekends. This was a cognitive capacity crisis moment. After numerous requests for staff, I informed my managers if they did not get me help that I was going to quit. And it slowed the progression of getting this solution out. And I will tell you, the
Mm.
lesson I carried forward was that innovation does not accelerate simply because you want to add more technology. You want to add more technology, but have to create the space for the innovative solutions to thrive and move forward. You want to design a culture of innovation. So if you want innovation to move forward, especially when you see it's being blocked by bureaucracy and cognitive capacity, you want to make sure that you're designing a culture or organization that helps support that.
You're having to drive that alignment across these different groups to be able to get things out, and you figure something out, but they don't know that's really an army of one. So what did delivering this innovation teach you about, especially an innovation drag that they were experiencing before you got there? What did that teach you about leadership and influence?
Poor decision quality and depleted decision capacity
Mm.
constraints on innovation.
Okay.
Have the decision makers supporting the effort and being ambassadors towards your moving forward in that solution is key.
Mhm.
And that is key when trying to move anything forward, knowing who the decision makers are and who their backups are.
There you go. I think the other thing is critical path. You're kind of mentioning this. Everyone thinks about a critical path of a product or like oh, here's the critical path, a series of processes that need to get something out. People need to think about critical path of people. Who are the
Yes.
bare minimum decision makers to get this through? And not just I need to talk to everybody.
You want to always know is number one, who controls the money? Hands down. Follow
Boom.
the money. Follow the money. And then the second part is the owner of the environment of that product.
Yep.
When you get the leadership buy-in and you get the program funded, now you have what you need to drive influence and innovation across the rest of the company. I've talked to automotive companies that wanted to move plant operations to the cloud, and they couldn't figure out why the project was progressing slow. It was because there were some leaders that were hesitant to move forward for fear that it would expose them to risks that they did not want. Then there was fear of that I experienced in DoD. There was was the fear of how this new innovation would affect job. Then the third drag I've seen is unclear ownership of organizations that hasn't been clarified through process elements such as a RACI chart. And so when you have ad hoc processes and unclear ownership, that can lead to innovation drag. And those slow processes that you want automated, it's just going to take a little bit of time because you have to get through the unclear ownership. What
Can I
else have
also
I seen
say
this?
you hit on it at the smoke signal part before, where it's like AI on top of bad processes.
Yes.
This is where, if we don't name it, leaders are expecting some outcomes that ain't gonna happen today. Fix that underlying.
Yeah, and you can't solve it without naming what it is, right? You have to understand what your problems are. So, as a listener to our podcast, what I would say is, where does innovation get stuck in your organization? Where have you seen it slow to progress? Where have you seen it lack innovation lacking in an organization at all? No vision for the future. Where have you seen it where they have the ideas, but it's just taking forever for it to launch? So
Yep.
those are signs, signals, those are things that you should look for because that is drag. That's innovation drag.
I think we get into step two, which is you got to separate. So you just name the drag, you call it out. But it's almost like if you just keep calling on a problem, you're not doing anything about it. You got to separate the risk from the fear. So when I'm hearing people, you know how when people talk about fears or issues, they'll think that they're naming a problem, but you can hear the fear all in their voice. You can feel it. You can feel it. They're like, oh, we haven't written anything down versus we haven't written anything down. Here is our process. Meanwhile, everyone's like, but we haven't written anything down. It's like, okay, got it. I got it. I got it. I understand. I'm telling you, Cynthia, that's how people talk. We ain't got nobody to do this. I know. Hold on. Hold on. I know leader wants this, and you are calling this out. That's thank you for at least naming it so we're not just saying yes to impossible things. Thank you for doing that. But let's separate this. So, not all resistance is bad. Some of it's healthy, which means it's okay to surface, hey, we don't have anything written down. So, this is what we're going to need to do. So the leaders need to really ask themselves, and this is actually, I was talking about individuals first. For individuals, some concerns are fear disguised as an actual strategy, but you got to really think about it in a different way. It's not just an alarm, it is something that needs to be addressed in order to make that outcome happen. And for leaders, sometimes you're pushing for something that you're not ready for. So before you push for it, it's about readiness. And it's really thinking, are we protecting the business? Are we protecting our own comfort by just calling out of fear? It's like, I know that people 15 levels above you have declared a thing. It doesn't mean that because you're not ready that it can't be done. It's about naming, calling it out. So I want to ask the listeners here on your own time, what are we calling a risk that may actually be a fear? And I want to really touch on the difference between a risk and a fear. Risk is something that can be addressed within a certain time frame. So if you say, hey, we can do this, but give us a month and we'll address this or this. Or if you give me these resources or give me this time or give me this alignment, then I can address the thing you're wanting, but it will take 3 weeks later. That's fine and fair. We ain't got nothing documented. Okay, that's a fear. Difference between we don't have it documented right now, but this is how we're going to document it. We're going to get it through, and then we can be able to start. Think of it as this risk to address is a milestone, not a blocker. Make it a milestone. So, yeah. Now, go on to the next step. How do you create that path once they've named the drag, figured out this is a risk or a milestone, or they've addressed the obstacles? What's next?
I would say the next thing to do is create room for people to experiment. I love labs. I love simulations. Those are places where you can go and build out innovative solutions, where you can test out new products. I love these centers of excellence where you can go through and literally just have fun and be innovative. Innovation does not need a massive transformation plan. It just needs an idea. It just needs room for growth. And you start with just simple pilots. It doesn't have to be anything large, just a simple pilot on simple processes that do not significantly impact the the overall some of your critical high value assets. I would say start with pilots on things that are not critical and test small.
Yeah.
So this is something that I think allows a lot of organizations, businesses, regardless of your size, this allows you to start with something small. And if there's any failure, any mistakes made, then it reduces the blast radius of whatever it is that you're doing. And so and start with pilots, test small, as things occur, as mistakes are made, lessons are created, then learn quickly, create good feedback loops so things can go back and forth and you can learn from that and make it so experimentation is safe enough for people to try. You don't want to break the business, but you do want to move the business forward. So do that in small steps. Things that you can do, like just administrative process, are always some of the best things to test out technology on. So when we start thinking about what are some of the things that you can do, think about what is one small experiment that you can do, your team can run in 30 days, even if it's taking the time to document a process that's never been documented before, create an innovative solution for it, and then start with the pilot. that's what you can do in the next 30 days. So that's creating room to experiment, that's creating room to innovate, that's creating room to allow the thought leaders in your organizations to feel that they can produce something that helps your organization move forward.
Can I add on to that? I
Mhm.
think it's the going back to that fear. Another form of fear is not just, okay, here's the process or here's the thing that's not happening. It's this is a big ask. And I don't know how to break it up. Experiments
Mm,
help you break it up. Because a lot of
mhm.
people think, oh my God, when we think of coverage. I'll give an example from an Amazon perspective. We will have 300,000 products that we're trying to do something for, launch a control or launch a process for. If you think about it for like 300,000 products, that's a lot. And that causes fear itself. But we're saying we're going to test on 10 and then dial it up by 1,000,
Mm.
10x every time, then it's not as bad. So
Yeah.
think of taking these big innovation outcomes and breaking it into smaller chunks, including with a pilot or an experiment to help you.
Yeah.
Now that gets to the next part. Ooh, my favorite thing, reducing the noise around priorities. So here's the thing. There is a lot of, we talked about this even in the AI piece. There's a lot of noise. There is a lot of chatter around, and there's a lot of things you just got to do. So, if you're going to experiment, if you're going to do something that's innovation that's outside of your day job, you have to have where does this fit in my list of priorities? The worst thing you can do is just say yes without having that secondary conversation. So,
Mhm.
I hate it when people become too much yes men. They say yes, and then behind the scenes, like, oh my God, how we gonna get it done? You said yes. So I would encourage every individual to go to their leader and say, okay, based on all these things I've been asked, what is my priority? Well, I do that no matter how high you are. I even do that now to my director. I'm like, okay, you asked me 15 things. I did three, but there's still 12. So order a prioritization. Here's my take. What do you think? Okay, you agree. Great, wonderful. So if you hear me say nothing on these other three, this is what's going to be. And he'll be like, yeah, okay, cool. So every priority literally competes. Everything you have to do, energy, attention, creativity, all that plays a factor. And you have to make sure that you have the right focus to make this thing. So, prompt for the listeners again, what needs to be paused, stopped, or simplified so that innovation has room to do its thing? And
Mm.
Cynthia, take it home for the last one.
I will say the last step is designing for human capacity. What does that mean? That means documenting everything that you're doing to help restore focus as you move through your innovative solutions. This allows your team that if there's some kind of situation that happens at home, that happens at work, it allows them to take this time to step back. And then when they come back to it, the documentation is there and it allows them to refocus because innovation requires mental, emotional, and operational capacity. And you want to make sure that you have the human capacity to actually get it done. And so, with documentation and making sure that they have that to help them restore focus, it also helps relieve burnout. Right now, we're seeing everything under the sun with different AI solutions. And we're seeing not just the new innovative solutions that are coming out from other companies, but then you also have the innovative solutions that are coming out in your own company.
Yes.
Then you have the weapons of mass distraction. That's your phones, that's your tab, your emails, your Slacks. There's that green light check-in time that people are always looking to make sure that you're online. Like all of this stuff leads to burnout. And
It
even though
does.
burnout teams perform, they rarely transform an organization to the best capacity, the best capabilities that they can. Why? Because of the capacity. We are experiencing a cognitive capacity crisis right now. Everything requires people's attention. So, what are some of the things that you can do to help manage the human cognitive capacity of your organization, of your teams? Leaders should ask the question of, do you have the capacity with the same energy that you ask when you're asking, is a system secure? It should be the same thing, because you want to create a space where there's psychological safety, recovery, and trust for your people. And this is key for innovation and allowing them to be in that space and be present in that space so that they can be innovative. And I will tell you, even me, I know Alexis can probably speak to this about her sabbatical. Me having my sabbatical of being off for 6 months, my brain started coming with all kind of great ideas. So I will tell
Exactly.
you
It
that, and this
did.
is just me taking 6 month sabbatical after going hard in the paint for 22 years. So I will say that you do want to make sure that you're designing for human capacity. And so for my listeners, I ask that you ask people to innovate from a place of energy and not a place of exhaustion.
So I think that's so important because a lot of time we're like, I gotta figure this out. That you are just trying to do the bare minimum to get through the day when people ask you to innovate when you are exhausted, right?
Yes.
Versus, oh, I get to, or look what I did on my own. And I think there's a difference between, oh, I'm not working late and versus where you're working late and you don't really want to. When you
Yeah.
have an idea and nothing can stop it, and when you're excited, you will
Yes.
take up all your time, extra time, like you're
Yes.
thinking about it, you're
Yes.
doing it. And that's a difference between I'm exhausted because I did all of this work, all these competing priorities, answered all these emails, fixed all these problems, dealt with all these alarms, versus I'm excited to do something because no one told me to. I'm trying to innovate for something that's my idea. There's a difference
Yes.
to that. And it's the same
Yeah.
hours, but it feels different. So it's not about the hours on the clock of what you're doing. It's about how do you
Mhm.
feel as you're doing it? Do you feel energized and ready to go? Like can't sleep about it? Or are you literally, I gotta, fine.
It's like asking people, are you asking your people to create a future while still trying to survive the present? And that is a challenge. So when
Yes.
you start thinking about moving forward with innovation drag, or what are some of the things, these are the 5 steps, the 5 high level steps that we provide for addressing innovation drag. And it allows you to really identify and pinpoint what are some of your issues and figure out how you can move forward.
Yeah.
Now, with that, we know that innovation drag is real, even though it's often hidden in plain sight, it's still real. And so it shows in the meetings that go nowhere. It shows up in teams that are busy but stay stuck. It
Hmm.
shows up when leaders say that they want change, but they reward behavior that keeps everything the same.
Exactly.
But the good news is that once you name the drag, now you can start fixing and designing around it.
Now, plus one, also innovation is actually a resilience issue. That's why we're talking about it here. Because you need this. You need to be able to innovate in order to be able to do your job properly and even beyond that. But you need a literal baseline, a foundation. You need trust, capacity, clarity, safety to build what comes next. So we keep talking about this. If the human system is under pressure, all of these episodes have been about if the human system is under pressure. But this episode, we're saying if it's under pressure, innovation will always suffer. You will get the bare minimum of innovation. You'll get incremental wins. So, leaders, I consider all the audience leaders in their own right, they have to pay attention not only to the strategy, but the conditions people are working within to make that strategy happen. If not, It'll just be a redo of a redo, and the same problems will keep coming up again and again. So I'm gonna ask you this question goes a little bit rapid fire in this. What's one blocker we want leaders to pay more attention to?
Identify why there is a slow process to getting a decision and the quality of the decisions that are coming out of your leaders or your teams. As a leader of an organization or a department, our job is to make decisions. So if there's an issue with decision quality or the process of actually making that actual decision, then I would say those are the two things we want to dive into. Because sometimes that path to getting a decision, a quality decision, is impacted by competency. Maybe they may just not know and they don't want to acknowledge that they don't know. And so they're pushing off that decision because they have to get competent in a new area. And that's okay. So I would say
Yeah.
looking and diving into decision quality, decision making criteria and the path to decisions. Yeah.
I would say my answer is infrastructure because I think if there is ever a theme for innovation drag is it's in and AI also. You can only do as good as your data. You can only build and improve as good as your processes. If you don't have anything written down, if you don't have all your data going to one place and there's a lot of cleanup needed, that will slow you down quicker than anything else. And that
Yeah.
slows your people down too. It adds on. I've seen so many teams where I've literally went through our OP1 process, and the team's issue is that they are pulling 5 different data elements in 5 different places. There's AI, but unless it has access to all that, it ain't gonna pull all that. So it's still a person. He's spending their weekend pulling stuff from different places from Monday's report. That's a
Mhm.
problem. That's the biggest problem. So it's if you want to reduce burnout, if you want to increase innovation, and you want to make AI work, your infrastructure needs to be solid. Your data needs to be clean. That's just what it
Yep.
is.
Yep. And sometimes the most innovative thing a leader can do is to tell the truth about what's wrong. And with that, we want to thank you for listening and visiting Resilience by the Design podcast today. If today's conversation resonated with you, feel free to leave us a comment in the comment section or ping me or Alexis on LinkedIn.
Oh! Remember, the biggest cyber risk isn't technical. It is ignoring the human system under pressure. Until next time, stay resilient.
Bye bye.
Bye.